On today's Newsmakers, Nigerian persecution, a cop's battle against demons, and immigration. That and more coming up. Welcome to Newsmakers, a show where we go behind the headlines each and every week to bring you interviews with pastors, entertainers, politicians, and other notable news figures. Up on today's show, we are talking first with Brad Brandon. He's going to explain the media's mistakes and how they cover Nigeria and the horrific persecution unfolding there. Let's welcome him here to Newsmakers. President Donald Trump redesignating Nigeria a country of particular concern. We've seen headlines and stats and numbers that are incredibly disturbing coming out of Nigeria for a long time now. But right now, attention is being placed back on Nigeria. So let's just start here. You have been on the ground. You work in Nigeria. You have helped so many people through across Nigeria. Is this a persecution issue, or is something else going on here on the ground there in Nigeria?
The answer is yes to both of those questions. It is a persecution issue. I mean, you've got over 50,000 Christians that have been killed since 2009. 18,000 churches have been destroyed. Not only the deaths, but also look at the internally displaced persons camps. There's over 3.5 million people in IDP camps, and 80% of them are Christian. Well, how did they end up in those camps? It's because their communities and their villages are being destroyed and they have nowhere else to go. So there is an issue of Christian persecution going on, no doubt. Christians are being targeted. They are second-class citizens all throughout northern Nigeria. But there are a lot of complexities to it. Some people cite, well, there's a lot of Muslim on Muslim violence. And that's absolutely true. Boko Haram will target Muslims just as fast, really, as anybody else. We are very familiar with several schools, Islamic schools, who've had Muslim children kidnapped by Boko Haram. They end up holding them for ransom. These are Muslim children, holding them for ransom, and that's a lot of times how Boko Haram will fund their operations. A lot of times in all of that, the Boko Haram and ISWA and other factional groups are targeting non-radical Muslims. So they're targeting Muslims that don't hold their radical beliefs almost as like compromisers. So they'll target those communities of Muslims as well. But if you look at the overall numbers, clearly Christians are being targeted, and it's the killing and the persecution and the displacement are all disproportionate by far against Christians.
You know, as somebody who you're running across Nigeria, you risk your own safety and life by being there to help persecuted Christians. I mean, it's incredible the work that you do. When you look at the decision here by the U.S. government to designate Nigeria as a country of particular concern, when you look at the narrative that the U.S. government currently has on this, what is your take on that? Is this the right approach in terms of the designation and in terms of the fact that this persecution is happening and needs to be addressed?
I would say, as far as the designation is concerned, absolutely. President Trump designated Nigeria a country of particular concern, which is a legal designation at the State Department. He did that in his first term. Biden reversed that. President Biden reversed that. Almost one of the first things he did when he was elected. He took Nigeria off of that list. Now, President Trump has put them back on. That does three things. One, it allows us to put diplomatic pressure on the Nigerian government to take action. The other thing that it does is it allows us to impose sanctions on Nigeria, which needs to happen as well. One of the reasons, I might add, why President Biden took them off the list, Nigeria has some of the largest airlines in Africa, and they need places to buy their planes and import things. So there was a financial motivation behind taking them off. But it allows us to impose sanctions. The last thing that it does is it allows us to withhold aid. So those three things we now can use as leverage now that Nigeria is back on the country of particular concern list. Now, one of the things that I would caution President Trump about, if I had his ear, was the statement that he made that we could go in guns blazing and that we would send troops and airstrikes to stop this. I know how President Trump is. He often uses hyperbole and he'll use bombastic language to sort of shake things up. That's just the way
or
that he is.
people, or scare them maybe into compliance.
Of course, right. And he likes to be very ambiguous and unpredictable and all of those things. But I would caution and say there is a lot of danger in sending troops and airstrikes into those areas. It's not as cut and dry as there's areas of terrorists and areas of innocent people. Boko Haram and ISWA and other groups, the Fulani militants in those areas, and there's certainly plenty of militant Fulani Muslims in northern Nigeria. They are experts at intertwining themselves or embedding themselves in communities of innocent people. So to unwind that, if you go in there and start doing airstrikes, you are certainly going to have some significant collateral damage on innocent people. We're going in there and trying to help those innocent people. So I would hate to see them start dropping bombs in those areas, even though I know the United States military can be very precise. But these are people, Boko Haram, who are living in these communities of innocent people. They force innocent people oftentimes to join with Boko Haram. These people don't always agree with Boko Haram, but Boko Haram will go in and say, join us or we'll kill your herd of cattle. Join us or we will kill your family. And so, of course, they're going to join just to survive. So it's not as cut and dry as there's Boko Haram over here, innocent people over here, Fulani Muslims over here. It's just not that. It's just not that black and white.
Brad, I appreciate you, as always, taking the time and joining us today.
Thanks, Billy. Appreciate it.
Let's continue to pray for Nigerians under duress and for the government there to halt the chaos. We'll be right back in just a moment with more Newsmakers. Welcome back to Newsmakers. Next up, Andrew Columbia is a pastor, but he was once a cop, and he battled the demonic on the streets of New York City. He's joining me today with Jen Lilly on a recent episode of our Into the Supernatural podcast. We want to show you a part of that conversation right now. For those who don't know you, you spent years on the NYPD, the New York Police Department, before entering full-time ministry. And obviously, you now fight spiritual battles before you fought crime. But let's talk about, and I know this is a loaded question because I know your story and I love it. At some point, you had a pivot point moment where you were on the job and you were opened up to the spiritual realm and understanding what it was. Can you take us through that pivotal moment?
Yeah, well, the pivotal moment was the rooftop encounter that I had with God. But just a quick lead up to it. You know, working in the Lower East Side of Manhattan, where I worked in the 80s and 90s, that was when crack cocaine just came out. So there was a ton of drug abuse, violent crime, and demonic warfare going on in the streets of New York City. And I would see these manifestations of evil, and that's what I'm going to call them, on a regular basis. Because, you know, the average person, whether on drugs or not, does not have the strength of 10 people when you have police officers over 200 pounds trying to hold somebody down that's 150 pounds. There was a supernatural component to the violence, to the anger, and it was obvious even before I really had my rooftop encounter with God, which opened my eyes completely to the spiritual realm. You were able to see snippets of it just working day to day. And the other officers that I worked with, I'm sure when I share my story, a lot of them, when I mention that component of evil, they agree right away, because even if they don't fully comprehend it, they know it's real because they've witnessed it and experienced it.
Wow, that is not what I was expecting you to say. I would have thought you were going to say, you know, my other police officer friends, they think I'm crazy. So I mean, you're like, no,
well, that too, but they thought I was crazy before God, and then after God, they even thought I was more crazy. So yeah, that was definitely a component of it. But leading up to the rooftop, to answer your question directly, you know, seeing the things that I saw on a regular basis caused PTSD. I'm even going to say critical incident stress. And in my case, I don't want to say suicidal ideation, but hopelessness,
Sure.
which led to my moment on the rooftop where I had my showdown with God. And as you know, Billy, I've shared it before. I was working one day and I was just like a soda bottle ready to explode from my own personal baggage. And a lot of it was in the subconscious realm. And seeing what I saw on the street, which would trigger it day to day. One of the guys I work with said, "Columbia, you look like you're going to explode." And when he told me that, I felt like I was exposed, and that the tough veneer, the macho, the bodybuilder, the big Italian tough guy with nicknames of Evil and Iceman was melted in about a minute because I was exposed. He saw through me. So I didn't know what to do with that. And that evening, I was working a security job part-time in Harlem, New York. I used to work at a building in Harlem. It was actually a nice building. And I'd go up to the roof around 3 o'clock in the morning and lock up. And that night, after the shift, I went to that job and I'm walking up the stairway to the rooftop and I begin to talk to God. I begin to yell at God, scream at God, curse at God. It was like everything in me, all the struggles, all the insecurities, the fears, all the issues that I had from the job and even personal just came out in that moment. And I went up to that rooftop yelling, screaming, cursing at God. And the crescendo of it was, I took out my gun, I waved it in the air, and I said, "God, if you're real and you're there, what's stopping me right now from blowing my brains out? I want to know if you're real. I want to know if you're there. And I want to know if you love me." And it was in that moment that I had this epiphany. It was very similar to Paul on his Damascus Road encounter, where this bright light, and it was a light and a presence, just enveloped me. The best way I could describe it is like a tractor beam from heaven came over me and stopped me in my rage, fury, frustration, fear, anger. The light, instantly I recognized it as the presence of God. And in that moment, in a supernatural encounter, all of my questions, all of my fears, all of my doubts were answered. That I knew I was in God's presence. And without even me asking those things that were deep in my heart that I was wrestling with, God answered them in a way that I can receive it. And I felt this love that I've never felt this before, this peace, this supernatural presence. And as I'm in this presence, my hands began to go up in the air, and I began to say the name Yahweh over and over again, but it was almost like a song. It was, you could call it tongues, I guess, if you want to. I don't remember anything other than just saying Yahweh, almost singing, and the presence intensified so much that in that moment, I was like caught up with the Lord. There was no time, no space, no matter. It was just me and God. It was a personal, supernatural revelation that instantaneously changed my life. And then it stopped just like that. And now I'm left standing on the roof. And then the human brain kicks in. What just happened?
Wow. Come on. That's awesome.
When I came off that roof, the one thing God spoke to me in my spirit was, if I can do this for you, I can do it for anybody. I truly believe that. That's what drives me. That's my driving force. There's words that I use every day: purpose, passion, destiny. These are words that God ingrained in my spirit, and authority, alignment, and obedience. They make the sign of the cross, and the passion's in the middle. That's the visual God gave me to live my life in a way that pleases him and truly points people to Jesus. And that's really what it's all about.
I love it. I can't wait to read this book.
Well, I appreciate you as always, and we'll definitely be having you back. There's a lot more to talk about, but going through all this is so important, and I appreciate your just candid nature and even sharing your own personal details. Those are not easy details to share, so we appreciate that.
Yeah.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for having me. Always a pleasure, Billy.
For more on Andrew Columbia's work, you can grab a copy of his book. It's called Spiritual Warfare: The Path to Victory, and you can find it on Amazon today. We'll be right back in just a moment with more Newsmakers. Welcome back to Newsmakers on the CBN News Channel. For our final segment, Republican Representative Maria Salazar. She joins Newsmakers to talk all about her passionate efforts to fix the immigration system. We want to welcome you here to the show to break it all down. There is so much to this issue. What do you believe, and I know this is a loaded question, but what do you believe everyone is getting wrong about the immigration issue?
Everyone is getting wrong is that you cannot deport every single illegal in the country, because we're talking about we don't have the manpower to do that. At the same time, those are hands that we need to grow the economy. And then the other side wants to give path to citizenship to everybody and let them make them be citizens even though they broke the law. Either one is neither is good. The third is dignity, which is what I'm offering. Letting dignity law, which is the name of the legislation. Bring them out of the shadows. If they have been here for more than 5 years, I'm not talking about the Biden migrants. I am not talking about giving those people who have been here for more than 5 years and do not have a criminal record, any type of citizenship or amnesty. I'm offering them the dignity status, which is that allows them to stay in the country, go home for Christmas, buy a home, pay $7,000 in fines, pay 1% of their salary for the next 7 years, and to be able to consume and to live a dignified life in the promised land. That's the middle of the road. That's a Solomonic way of solving a 40-year problem.
You know, this Dignity Act that you introduced, you know, what was it? You just described a lot of the different pieces of this that you feel sort of solve the issue and bring it to a middle ground. What motivated this for you?
Well, I am a born-again Christian. I am a militant Christian. I believe that this is the right thing to do. It says that in the Bible over and over again. Treat your neighbor as yourself, and do not necessarily give them citizenship, but treat them well. And if they have set roots in our communities, we should grant them some type of dignified life. And that's exactly what I'm saying. I'm not telling you that they need to have access to federal programs, or that they need to vote, or that they need to become Americans. I'm just giving them dignity so they can continue working and contributing and helping the average American consumer. Because if you want the prices of your vegetables and your fruits and your hotel rooms when you're traveling for business, or if you want to have a cheap home, you need people putting that together. And those are in those industries, specifically construction, hospitality, and agricultural. Those are the illegals are a major force behind those industries.
You know, when you look out there at what is happening right now, obviously there's a lot of debate around ICE and around the actions of ICE. There's a lot of debate around the New York City mayoral race, which Mamdani won. You know, when you look at that particular victory, what does that signify to you? Do you have concerns about it? I would imagine just ideologically. I'm curious on this issue.
Great concerns on the Mamdani, but let's go to the ICE. The ICE rates some of them are unacceptable. I agree with ICE. I agree that you have to kick out the bad hombres. You have to go after the illegals who are criminals. I agree with you. Kick them out with no mercy. If they are murderers or rapists, or they are just harming our communities. But I don't agree that you have to kick out of the country someone who's been here for 20 years, has 3 American children that do not have a criminal record, has been picking up the jalapeno peppers in Southern California, or cleaning the toilets in Manhattan, or in the slaughterhouses, or in the dairies, milking the cows and contributing. And it's true, they're illegals, but the guy who gave him the job also broke the law. So then you start into this spiral that I would like to stop. So bring everyone out of the shadows, make them accountable, and give them dignity. So ICE should concentrate their resources on the bad hombres, just like the president said. Now, Mamdani, we have a major problem because the Democratic Party has been infiltrated by this nefarious ideology called socialism. Socialism is Marxism, and Marxism is communism. We know because my parents are Cubans. I'm first generation American, and I know exactly what that ideology does to you. It's wonderful in theory is miserable in practice. So unfortunately, Mondani and AOC and everyone in Congress that has drank the Kool-Aid and thinks that free rights and free healthcare and free childcare and free food in the bodegas, all that is beautiful, but it's unattainable. So if we, the GOP, do not bring the Hispanics to vote with us again, then we do not have enough votes in order to win elections, be in power, and maintain the American way of life.
You know, I have to ask you because you brought that up with your parents and your family and your history. And, you know, what was it? I mean, feel free to tell as much of the story as you want, but what was it that drew you to the Republican Party?
Well, because Cubans in my community, we have sided with the Republicans because the Republicans have never had any type of tendency towards left or socialism. We have a big history with Bay of Pigs. We are a very tight community that has suffered to the maximum of the possibilities what communism does to you. We're talking about not only the Cubans, but the Venezuelans. 8 million Venezuelans fled in the last 25 years because of communism having the largest reserves of oil in the world. So they do have resources. It's just that the ideology is evil. It's nefarious, it's cruel, it's anti-Christian, and anti-American. So we in the GOP have to wake up and bring new votes to our base.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time joining us today. Thank you so much.
Of course, and God blesses us. You know, we are blessed by the Almighty, and we love him. And I thank you.
For more information on this important topic, you can get Representative Salazar's new book. It's titled Dignity, Not Citizenship: The Truth About Immigration No One Is Telling You. We'll be right back in just a moment with more Newsmakers. That's all for Newsmakers. Thank you for watching, and be sure to head on over to the CBN News YouTube channel. That's where you'll find the full interviews you saw on today's episode. You can also check out our documentary investigating the supernatural miracles. We traveled the entire country documenting some of the most amazing miracle stories. You can watch that at cbn.com/supernatural. And we'll see you again here next week for another episode of Newsmakers.